A captain season of Survivor is when the show doesn't want to commit to bringing back a whole cast of returning players, but someone in charge has a craving for just a handful of their favorite players coming back and having a potentially easy season for them to win. Does this turn out the way they hope? Almost never, actually. This concept seems to blow up in their face over and over again, and yet they can't quit it. Today, I am ranking these seasons from worst to best with spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, then check out my most recent ranking of every season video, which I will link in the description. So with that, number 6. Season 39 sees Boston Rob and Sandra come back not to play the game, but simply to live on an island called Island of the Idols, where they coach the new players, and advantages can be won while also teaching them the tricks of the game. This is not an inherently bad idea, actually. It's just a flawed executed one. Like putting too much milk into a bowl of cereal. Milk and cereal is good. Too much, oh, it gets soggy way too fast. Now imagine that cereal bowl and add a big fat wet turd into it. That's what this season is. Dan Spilo combined with Survivor production taking too long to remove him from the game completely ruins this season, which is a shame as there are many parts to season 39 that are actually good, but then there's Dan right there the whole time being a creep, and he doesn't even get a purple edit. He can't stop touching women when they don't want to be touched, and then this all comes to a head at the merge.
Is the bottom line we're not going to let this go?
Well,
as much as it won't be let go, right? Clearly, Jeff, right? It won't be let go.
You're right. I will never let it go.
And then, yeah, it's like not brought up again until he's pulled from the game. So I guess Jeff let it go pretty quick. What a massive shame this is, by the way. Had Dan been removed at the merge, the season could have been salvaged. There is some great casting here and even some fun moments, but like a couple of parents physically and mentally abusing each other in the kitchen while you pretend to ignore them in the living room while trying to play your video game, it's just bad. It's not fun. Not only is this the worst captain season of all time, it's the worst Survivor season of all time, and it isn't even close. But I don't want to end on a sour note. Let me show you the one and only event this season worth remembering.
Want to know what you're playing for?
Yes.
We brought Applebee's to Fiji.
Oh my God!
Oh my God, yes.
How about the blue ribbon brownie?
Oh my God.
I love Applebee's. Applebee's is by far my favorite sit-down restaurant.
Walking up to Applebee's was unbelievable because the first thing we saw was the shark bowl. Clear ocean blue with a gummy shark on top. We're in the Fiji Islands, and that's just the island drink you want.
Let's see.
Golden fajitas, we got steak, we have shrimp.
This is the best thing I ever drank in my life.
And all this food in the background, the buffalo wings, the spinach artichoke dip.
Oh my God, this looks so good.
Applebee's, I love you. Their fajitas was amazing and my mouth was watering. It was unbelievable. So it was one of the greatest moments and something I will never forget for the rest of my life.
Heads up, this video was selected and created back in March of 2023 at the request of my patrons on Patreon. If you want to pick what I make and watch everything up to 6 months early, then consider joining them on Patreon. Links in the description. Now with that, number 5. Season 22 sees Boston Rob and Russell Hantz coming hot off the heels of their season 20 rivalry, where this happened at that reunion.
The problem with Russell, and I think what he's trying to say to you, is that he doesn't play the game to win. And it's clear in his strategy. He plays a good game to get to the end, but he doesn't play a game to win the game. And that's where he and I differ.
And you play the game to win?
I do play the game to win.
When have you won?
I haven't. But I guarantee, given the opportunity, I'd gladly go back and kick your ass all over the island.
You know what? Let's make it happen. That could be a future season, Rob versus Russell.
That basically is the catalyst for this entire season and the return of the captain's format of Survivor that had been put to bed after season 11. They basically ripped it out of the ground and said, you're coming back, captain season, and you're gonna like it. Funny how Boston Rob, by the way, is on the 2 worst seasons on this list. It's not even his fault. I can't blame him for season 39, and I can't blame him for this season. He's one of the few shining spots on this season. Now, many people don't like the Redemption Island twist that they added here that seems to be a safeguard for physically strong players to get back in the game after being voted out, because when you're voted out, you go to live on an island, and every single episode you have to survive a challenge against a new player who's been voted out, and if you beat them, you get to continue living on the island until you get one of 2 chances to get back into the game. The worst part is it just takes a lot of time out of the episode, especially when the person ends up surviving a bunch of challenges and then they don't get back in. We'll get to that later. Truly, this season is actually fun for like 3, maybe 4 episodes, basically until Russell Hantz gets voted out and is eliminated while he's crying. That's fun. But then after that, it becomes the Boston Rob show, and everyone else seems to be just like filler characters on any other season before this. And I feel like none of them even really watched Survivor before. I mean, they probably watched Heroes vs. Villains, where the show paints Boston Rob in this heroic light for the first time ever. And these people did not see Marquesas or All Stars, where Boston Rob plays exactly like he did there, except here, and he's more mature here, I guess. Heck, had they seen Boston Rob on The Amazing Race, they would have known this dude's a villain. He's one of the most arrogant and powerful players the show has ever seen, and he's entertaining all for it. So, shocker when he is arrogant, powerful, and eliminates all the competition. Boston Rob is more fun when his back's to the wall. When he's in charge of the game, he just puts his foot on everyone's throat and doesn't let them get up, which is smart gameplay. It's just not entertaining. What kills me though is how the show never gives any sort of challenge or opportunity for Boston Rob and Russell to have faced off before the merge happens. Just poorly thought out and planned on their part. And I don't think Boston Rob even acknowledges that Russell left the game in the show. What the heck? That's the whole premise of this season. But I guess I should mention the only other 2 characters this season with a semblance of a story arc. Matt Elrod is voted off in episode 2 due to flirting with Andrea, who the show wants to make into a bigger deal, but she's really not this season. When he has his redemption arc of surviving everyone at Redemption Island, the entire pre-merge, only to return and then immediately get voted off again because Boston Rob does not like people getting in his way or having any sort of story at all. He knows that that redemption arc is too good to pass up at a final tribal. So Matt goes right back to Redemption Island, where he survives everyone again until right at the end and he doesn't get back in. So what could have been a really cool story gets completely crushed when he loses one challenge, and I can't blame him. He won like what? 10, 12, 15. It felt like an insane number of challenges he had to win to get back in the game, but Matt Elrod had no social game, clearly. Otherwise, he would have known he was getting voted off at least the second time. Like the rest of the season, it's kind of a buzzkill. Oh, and how can I forget the specialist, Philip Shepard? Someone who I think would be fun in small doses, becomes essentially the second main character of the season behind Boston Rob after Russell is voted off, and we get way too much of him with no eventual payoff of him being voted off, because instead of being voted off like any good villain, he is dragged to the end of the game as a goat to be slaughtered. And even when he comes back on a later season, because yes, he comes back, he doesn't recognize this is what happened. He thinks he actually earned his second place victory. However, he does provide some incredible scenes that people still quote to this day.
You are a crazy person.
Jeff, I'm a former special agent. So if I make a statement to you, I'll do everything I can to make sure I adhere to that. And I will not betray. I'll go down on a sinking ship. My vote tonight will be for Francesca. You and Francesca. And now you're trying to say I'm unstable. No, I'm quite rational. And guess what? I was going to vote for Francesca because that meant Francesca. My mouth is dry and I've been getting treatment for it. So
also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention how ugly this season is visually. Not that many people point this out, but this location and colors, they're just gross. Number 4. Season 11 features the first ever time Survivor experimented with the captain's formula, and it pays off, just not in the way the show was hoping it would. They bring back Bobby John and Stephanie for redemption from Palau, and while Stephanie makes complete sense, having survived the fall of Oolong until the end, Bobby John doesn't. It felt like they wanted Stephanie and they weren't completely sure who the other person was that they should bring back, so they picked Bobby John. However, I think Wanda would have made a much better, or at least a much funnier option. Anyways, while Bobby John is the same as he was in Palau, at least here he gets more of a story as he has a rivalry with Jamie. However, truly Stephanie is the star. And why is that? Because she becomes the villain. This is not what the show wanted, by the way. You see, in Palau, Stephanie was edited like Rupert in Pearl Islands. She was the underdog who had big, glaring flaws, but the show mostly tried to minimize that while giving us ample opportunity to root for her and her positive attributes. All of her negatives were shown in Palau, but they're amplified here in Guatemala. I think it makes for a very interesting juxtaposition watching these seasons back to back. Her contradictions, her annoyances, and her straight turn to a villain is just mwah, chef's kiss. All of her flaws were on full display as she was no longer the underdog, but instead one of the players running the game against a bunch of newbies, not as effectively as Boston Rob, but well enough to reach the final two. So Stephanie's story was a very interesting follow-up to her Palau story, but I can't fail to mention some of the other big characters of Guatemala, like Judd.
Sometimes you have to learn to control your emotions when you're on the ball field.
I mean, it's not like we're being bad sportsmanships at all. We just go out there and we give it 120%, man. Whatever it takes, we'll give it. And that's what I did today, and everybody ate good, so no matter what I do, man, I'm giving it my damn all, man. We'll drive that ball all the way downfield until we score a touchdown, man.
Judd.
You know what? You probably never played a damn sport in your life anyway, so you don't even know what it's like, man. So, you know, you should just shut up. I just walked into camp. She's telling me that I have ADD. That's how you approach me? That's what you like to say? She comes to camp. You have ADD. Do you know that? When you first meet somebody, is that something nice to say? Is that a compliment? I have ADD? Don't ask me such a stupid question, man.
I have nothing else to say except Judd is amazing and a top 10 Survivor character of all time. I would rewatch Guatemala right now just for him. Overall, this is a solid season that is much more watchable than the last two, but not good enough for me to recommend to anyone interested in the show who hasn't seen it before. I can see why after this mostly failed experiment, because this is not how the show wanted it to turn out, though it's still entertaining, why they would shelve this captain's format for another 11 seasons. Number 3. Season 23, starring Benjamin Coach Wade and Ozzy Lust, is a weird captain season. It 1-for-1 copies the same exact format as season 22, but it is filmed after season 22 finishes airing on TV, so everyone this season knows every single trick the show has up its sleeve. It has nothing new for them. But as a result, we do actually see some players playing a much bigger, bolder, flashier game than in season 22 because they're taking advantage of this knowledge. Don't get me wrong though, the fact that we basically just get 2 alliances facing off and then one just pagongs the other until the end, while also forming a cult, is a big stain on the season. Because really, the season is super fun through the first, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 episodes, but then after that it just becomes, oh wow, the cult's running the game. How fun. I hope Ozzy gets back in and crushes them. The Redemption Island format works here much better than last time and sees new strategies take place. However, quite a few players are still willing to sit on their hands, and after a while, the season does revolve around Coach, Ozzy, Cochran, and Brandon. If you don't like them, then screw you, that's all we got. Everyone else is a non-factor, even the eventual winner in Sophie. Coach, like Stephanie, kind of runs the game, but like Stephanie, gets to the final 3 and blows it. The editing here is so imbalanced, and the use of religion as a weapon and taking advantage of people is disgusting. It hurts me more as a Christian seeing someone manipulate others under the guise of Christianity when they're actually doing the opposite of what the Bible says. But I don't want to end talking about the season without showing that one time Coach was called by his birth name, and oh, he gets very much upset by this.
What's his name? What was his birth name? It wasn't Coach, it was Benjamin, wasn't it? And you know, they're children, 26, 22. They over there listen to all the Benjamins, Halloween jokes, Chucky the Cheese jokes. They want it. He going off for loyalty, got them feet. Oh, Benjamin's so loyalty. Come on now. Every day got a story. I wasn't buying it. No.
Jeff's like, so you refuse to dignify him as coach? She's like, he's Benjamin. His mom named Benjamin. I would call him Benjamin.
If anybody calls me Benjamin to my face, I'm gonna go nuts. My parents call me coach. I've been being called coach since I was 18. It just ruins my day. It sucks. Could this day get any worse?
Number 2. Season 38 is the first season on this list I can say, wow, this is a good season. Definitely watch it. Yet despite this, many people hate it all the same. Why? Because of the edge of extinction. It's basically the Redemption Island twist on steroids. Instead of players getting voted out every week and having to compete every single week to get back in the game, they instead make it so that people get voted off, live on an island where they do nothing and then have 2 chances to get back in the game. This is actually really cool on paper, and I get what they were going for, but it would have been better if it just had ended at the merge with only 1 chance to get back in the game. Anyone coming back at the merge wouldn't have any influence over the jury, since they wouldn't have lived with the jury on the edge like Chris Underwood did, and would still need to survive so many eliminations to reach Final Tribal that I think most people could acknowledge if they played a great game, how that overshadows the one time they were voted off. Heck, let's look at Rick Devens, because that's clearly who I'm talking about. He returned after being voted off 4th, and you know how many tribal councils he would have missed if he had stayed on Lesu, like let's say somebody else got voted off that tribal? 0. Lesu doesn't go back to tribal in the pre-merge, and he is only on the edge for a few days. Now let's compare this to the Outcast twist of Pearl Islands, a much more highly regarded season, and I would say this is actually way more fair. What isn't fair though, in the eyes of most fans, is Chris Underwood being voted off 3rd and coming back into the game at the final 6 with an idol. Yeah, why does he get an idol? No arguments here. That's very much unfair, especially in any other season of Survivor. It is a huge flaw in the season's design, but wow, purely from an entertainment standpoint, it is so fun to watch. The finale of the season is actually a top 3 finale of Survivor of all time for me. No joke, because it plays out like a movie of betrayal, surprise, and a toppling of the kingpin.
It's the biggest risk I'm taking. So tonight, I am offering up my immunity necklace. Oh my. Giving it to Julie, and I will be making fire against Rick Devens tonight.
Wow. Go. 38 days on Survivor. It comes down to this for both Chris and Devens. $1 million on the line. Chris has a little something. Devens not panicking now, scraping more magnesium. Devens now has a fire. He's got a flame going, and it's going to stick. First bits of rope starting to burn. It's over. Chris has earned his way into the final 3.
And to think that the twist for this season was for someone like Joe and he fails. Yeah, once again, Survivor comes up with the captain's format to hopefully help one of their production favorite players, and it doesn't pan out. What a shocker. The only time it ever pans out, by the way, is literally for Boston Rob. So let's talk about the 4 returnees this season. Survivor doubled up by putting 2 captains on each tribe, and tell me if you've heard this before, but it backfires. Shocker. More so than if only 1 were on each tribe. I think if there was only 1 returnee on each tribe, they would have had a much easier time to blend in and just become a part of the team. When there are 2, all eyes are on them. Aubrey gets blindsided, Joe is a non-factor, and Wentworth and David only survive till the merge because they basically do this whole thing where they're at odds with each other, which they probably are maybe. And in essence, by targeting each other, they actually lasted longer, weirdly enough. Had one eliminated the other, then I don't think the other one would have made it that far. Add on the cast of War Dog, Lauren, Ron Clark, Wendy, and Reem. Oh yes, Reem. And this is actually a stellar season in spite of the twist and works as a one-off. I don't think this twist ever should have been brought back, period. If you disagree, then as Reem would say, screw you, dude.
Give me a break. You're not gonna show up here and be treated with open arms. No, thank you. No. This is what I went through. Read the sign, bro.
Number 1, season 25 has 3 captains, 1 for each tribe, and that's it. That's the twist for the season, nothing else. No island with Rob and Sandra, no place for eliminated players to go to and try to get back in the game, just 3 medically evacuated players getting another shot at this thing. Russell Swan is part of the infamous Matt Singh tribe where they fail over and over again, while all of his flaws are exposed that we barely saw in Samoa. Think of this, kind of like Stephanie LaGrossa on Guatemala, except shorter and more entertaining. We get Mike Skupin back, the guy who fell in the fire during season 2, who is still just as socially unaware as he was in season 2, and more clumsy than I remember. And of course, Jonathan Penner, who has matured a lot here since Micronesia, and here he plays a game where I think he truly was 1 move away from making Final Tribal Council and potentially winning it all. That isn't even to mention the rest of the cast, such as Denise, the eventual winner, Malcolm, who had the close connection with Denise, Lisa, and her amazing story this season. Oh, and Jeff Kent.
You know what pisses me off? Is I think I've made about $60 million playing baseball, and I want this frickin' $1 million in this game. And it's not even $1 million, it's 600 grand by the time Obama takes it. This just sucks.
And of course, there are so many other players. We have RC in her rivalry with somebody I will name later, Sarah Dawson, who just wanted to kiss Jeff on the lips.
Out of nowhere, Jeff Probst is in my camp, which is, you know, typically I'd jump up and down and maybe jump on him, but it just wasn't good timing.
Zane, who might be the best player to ever play this game, and Angie.
Angie, finish that same sentence. If I could change one thing about this tribe.
That we could have cookies.
But I can't mention the cast of the season without mentioning Abby Maria, one of the best villains this show has ever seen, and I honestly can't tell if she is intentionally being a villain or not, but either way, she entertains like no other. This is how a captain season should be. It's the only time I feel like it really worked out. I personally love Edge of Extinction, most people don't, but this is a season I think we all can agree, hey, this actually worked. This format, they could do this one again. A fun cast of newbies with returnees who are more characters than strategists. Penner is the closest one of the three to being a good strategist, and yet I would say he's like above average. Though his talk with Lisa is one of the catalysts for this channel's creation.
I'm like a storyteller, that's what I do, you know? Survivor is a big story. What's the story that's going to be told this season? Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? Who are the underdogs? Who is the audience going to be rooting for, whether consciously or not? What does the audience want to have happen? The audience is going to watch you, and they're going to say, she's being loyal to the people that she's been loyal to all along, and that's a wonderful thing. But they are not going to be happy that you are helping these three guys go further.
How do you rank the 6 captain seasons of Survivor? Should they bring this format back? Comment below, let me know. Thank you for watching, and doubly thanks for liking and subscribing. See you all next time.